Hello and welcome to our newest edition of the North Tampa Bay Chambers in the Know series. Today we have a very exciting guest. The reason today's guest is so exciting for me is because I met him 20 years ago at a chamber event in Jackson, Mississippi, literally on his first day of work. He is my very dear friend, JP Hervis. He is an award-winning journalist and publicist with Brandstory Communications. He's going to share some tips and tricks with you all to tell your story of your business and how to get that parlayed into perhaps media coverage for the good things that you're doing. So without further ado, my friend JP.
Hope, how are you? It's so good to see you. Thank goodness for this form of technology where we get a chance to see each other like this and more often, no matter what.
I know. Well, it is definitely awesome. And I could tell stories about you and how you have won those awards that are behind you. I think one of them came from your coverage of Hurricane Katrina when you were in Jackson, right?
Yeah, there was a team award to that, but some of it was consumer investigations out there in Jackson, Mississippi. Fighting the good fight to help people, which is one of the best parts of being a journalist.
And I think you had a really fun one with the Sweet Potato Queens. Do you remember certain?
Wow, your memory is better than mine. So, 13 years of stories as a journalist and now working almost 13 years now in this general public relations space. And it's like plus picking up some kids along the way and the memory's just slipping like that.
But that was a really good one, and I don't think I will ever forget that one. But we can save that for later in the blooper reel. But really today, what JP, I wanted you to give our members and our business community in the world some advice on storytelling. You've been a journalist and a publicist. This is what you do. Tell us how we can do better at promoting our businesses. Some of us don't really like to toot our own horn, but we have to be able to get out there. So share some insight with us.
Yeah, every business has a story, and those stories are comprised of the people who make the business, whether you're a small business, a founder, medium business, large business, or if you have a big staff, there are people within your business, and that makes the connection. Or there's a story behind the purpose of a product you sell or services that you have. So humans connect to stories. And it's one of the first things we learned as journalists when I was in the news media, when I attended the wonderful University of Florida, is that, stories are all about connection. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, what your gender is, where you are socioeconomically. The one thing that ties us all together are stories, our emotion, our human connection. So a business needs to not be something that's just an it or an inanimate building or object. It has to have something that has some emotion, some humanity to it, because that really makes the connection. I think generally speaking, Hope, and you might be surprised to hear this, the days of hard sales, especially as the new generations move on as our primary consumers, the day of the hard sale is done. You have to do long-term connections. And the sharpest end of the spear of that is telling good stories.
And so for a business person, if they're trying to like hone into what is that and trying to get that message out there, what are some little ticklers that can help them find that nugget that's worth telling? Or is everything worth telling?
Well, I don't know about everything. I know there's some things I don't want to tell people. No, but I would actually I'd say it's not nugget, it's nuggets, and I'll address that real quick. But it's got to be nuggets, because the way you're going to tell your story in your owned media, so this is your email marketing and your website and your social media, it's got to be consistent. You can't just tell one story. The way marketing is now, it has to be a drip, 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 drip effect. You have to keep beating the drum of the same messaging, but that connection and that storytelling. And that's done by using your owned channels and telling your own story. But what's worth telling is, just ask yourself, just to get off started, why did you start the business? Why are you making what you make? Why are you providing the service? What is it that you like about being in the area that you're in, serving that community? What is it that your business does as a charity? There's some incredible backstories, and I'll tell you one example. One of the first clients I ever had in this public relations field when I got out of the news media was an artist. And it was before I started my agency. I had worked at a different agency, and my boss just sent me out to this business. This woman was opening an art gallery, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get anybody interested in this? And especially at that time, it was just to get the news media interested. And I sat down with her and I interviewed her like I would as a journalist. I said, why'd you open this gallery? She said, for 35 years, she always wanted to be an artist, but nobody would ever support her, not her ex-husband, not her kids, not her parents. And then one day she was at the depths of depression and she got a one-way ticket to Italy. And while she was walking through an Italian neighborhood down a cobblestone street, she saw a paintbrush on the ground. She picked up that paintbrush, and 4 years later, she had sold 300 paintings and opened this gallery. So my headline to that story, when I pitched it to the media, and the same thing applies to when you're building your own stories, was art saves woman's life, opens gallery. And we got coverage for it. And then now that could also be done telling your own story that way. But that's more than just, hey, I'm opening a new gallery and I got great paintings and I'm the greatest artist since Van Gogh. It can't be that. There's got to be more. There's got to be depth. And the uniqueness of a product and a person and a business provides that depth that makes the connection.
And so if somebody doesn't have somebody like you to reach out to, which we'll leave your information at the end of this to make sure that they can reach out to you in the event that they do want some tips, what are just a few things that could help them get that story out? Social media is free. That's changed our world. How do they try to come up with that headline grabbing tagline?
Well, try to write down what I mentioned before, some of those. Why did I start this? What are some of the interesting stories of people, why they choose to work there? Besides they want to make money. Why did I choose to sell this product? Like, I have a story of why I do this. Hope you have a story why you do what you do so incredibly well. We all have them, and people want to connect to those things. So start with looking in the mirror. Your product looks in the mirror, your business looks in the mirror, you look in the mirror. And that's the jump. That's just the easy jump off point. Now, in terms of the distribution of that, you have your owned media channels we talked about, your social media, doing it via video. Also, I should really flag that at this point, if you're not utilizing video for your social media, your website, and your email marketing, you might as well be using a typewriter to put out your work. I mean, it's just at this point, it's archaic not to think of video. Pictures are great, video is better because you can inject emotion and have conversation and make personalizations. So you have those three primary owned media channels. And then you go through the earned media channels, which is the news media. And as you know, something that my agency specializes in earning the news media. And usually a lot of things that you would tell that are important is how you want to engage the media or something that's timely. So for instance, we have a nonprofit that helps children that are under stress because there are problems in the household between parents. Well, this is National Stress Awareness Month. So I marked that on the calendar and I went to some of the therapists that work at this nonprofit and I said, okay, what are 5 signs that your child is suffering from stress because of maybe a marriage issue? And they gave me those tips, and I'm going out to the news media so that they can provide that service. Where they're going to get to use an expert. So you want to feature your expertise in the news media and once again on your own channels as well.
So you've shared some good tips with us. Can you give us a what not to do or a horror story of how something just backfired?
Well, here's one thing I'll say. I call press releases, if we talk specifically about engaging the news media, press releases are zombies. They're alive, but they're kind of dead. If you just think that you write some press release and you're like, oh, this is the greatest press release ever. I'm the Shakespeare of press releases. I got news for you. And I would pull it out of my office closet. I called a friend at Channel 7 in Miami, where I used to be a reporter. And I said, send me every press release that you got today from 12 o'clock to 11:59. The stack is like this and was 408 press releases. You've got to break through that. Now, there's several ways to do it. You have to have the relationships. That's one of the things that we specialize in. But you also have to know who your audience is when you're engaging the news media. And, a TV station wants to know, what kind of video do you have? Is something timely? Is this relevant to this market? Think about it in those terms. The horror story is anytime you just talk about, I'm the best, this is why you should cover me, we sell the greatest tacos, I'm the greatest accountant. You don't do that. provide the service. If you're the accountant, provide the tax tips. If you're the taco guy, get ready to provide how to make the best low-cost tacos because Cinco de Mayo is coming up and that's good timing. Ooh. Be an expert. Provide the freedom of the service because then you're an expert. Just by getting on the air or even making your own video of how to make the perfect taco at home and you put it on your social media, you're the expert. You're not just saying, come on down, I got the best tacos in town. That's not going to work even generationally anymore.
And it's so interesting, just, excuse me, in our time for life, how things have changed. Back in the beginning of chamber time, you told me a line that stays with me forever, and I promise it's not embarrassing, but you told me, if it bleeds, it leads. And I still say that every day when I watch the news. I'm like, oh, what's bleeding today? But they're also starting to switch that into good news and want to showcase the things that are happening in our community. So is there a tip to reaching out to the media for that earned media, or is it just kind of organically and let them find you?
Yeah, no, you first don't send it out to some general email news box. There's something usually at news at whatever the outlet is called .com. Don't send it to that. Find one or two reporters or producers, depending if you're sending it to, online outlet or a TV station. You start there with who you think may have some history covering some of the things that you might be doing. A lot of it, Hope, is it really depends on the topic. Like I made the taco example of May. There was a bunch of Mexican restaurants we used to represent many years ago when I started this agency. We were preparing in February for Cinco de Mayo and all the story coverage that we want to get because we know you can anticipate what the news media wants. There's a national something awareness month for every business. That is a low-hanging fruit where you can just provide expertise in whatever that may be. Okay. Then I'd say the other thing is that if you have an emotional story to tell, let's say you're a nonprofit of some sort, don't just offer you're the executive director of your nonprofit. Offer the people that are being helped. Find those people that, I'll use the example of the charity I was talking about before. It starts with the family that's struggling, that's willing to tell their story to help the greater good. Because, the executive director of the charity is a talking head. And for reporters to want to tell a story, they want to grab, and this goes back to our original conversation, they want to grab the emotion of the story. They know it. It's journalism 101. What is the average Joe emotional impact? And then the executive director of charity comes through. And that can be true for anything. We're in tax time. If you're somebody who helps with someone's taxes and you got a new client and last year they tried to do it on their own and they blew thousands of dollars that they could have saved, see if that client of yours is willing to tell that story as a cautionary tale. Because the bleeds it leads part is really ultimately an emotional thing. Mm-hmm. It's bleeds it leads is emotional reaction. You have to get the emotional reaction in other ways outside of that as well. And my last thing here on this one, Hope, I credit you. You're absolutely right. The news industry is having a lot of internal discussions about larger scale stories that are more in depth, that they actually provide time to, that are community based. So there is opportunity out there more than ever, depends where you live, but more than ever to tell some of those, if you will, softer stories if there's a greater good message to it.
Well, I have totally gleaned some information from you, as I always do when we get to chat. It's not nearly as often, but I know that you guys cover the entire state. I think you do nationwide. And so if people wanted to find you, where could they do that?
Just visit our website. It's brandstorycommunications.com. Our phone number is area code 305-321-4293. And, I always like talking and meeting new folks and hearing their stories. And, maybe we can help them in the long term. Maybe that one conversation we ever have together, we can direct them in a certain way that might be best for their business or their nonprofit. But I'm always down to have a conversation. Like Hope, I like to meet people. I'm just not as charming as Hope is.
Oh, baloney. That's how we met, was because of your charming personality. And we bonded over the fact that we were both from Florida.
Yeah, Gators in Mississippi.
Yep.
Gators in Mississippi.
Well, I adore you, and you're doing great work. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and information with our chamber members. And we will look forward to seeing your great things in the future.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Hope.
my friend.
I appreciate you having on, and great job by you and your chamber and everything that you guys do for the community.
Thank you.